Is it safe to redline your motorcycle? Well, this is of course the Kawasaki ZX-9R. This is an old motorcycle from 1999 and we're going to be using it as our test subject in today's video. So what's going to happen? Is the bike going to blow up? Is a load of bad things going to happen? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. So let's jump on. Let's go. All right. So, okay. I think it's a bit misleading what a redline does. So for those of you that don't know, a redline is simply to stop the engine from over revving. Right? Over revving is, well, can be catastrophic. Not always, but it absolutely can be. Which direction do we want to go? Let's go up this way. And if you are going to redline your bikes, well, I would do it when the bike is warm. All right, don't do it when it's cold, because the oil isn't going to be working at operating temperature. The engine and everything else like that isn't going to be quite at operating temperature. And of course, as an engine warms up, well, all of the pieces inside the engine expand. They move about a little bit to fill the gaps and things. So redlining an engine that is cold can be more dangerous than if you redlined it warmed up. All right. Now, I'm one of those people that doesn't like redlining my bikes or my cars or anything for that matter. And the reason why is because the more you load an engine, the higher, the bigger the load you put it under, well, of course, the more wear is going to happen. It's not necessarily going to detonate immediately, but it very well could do damage long term to the bike. So, you know, what is the point in doing it? Now, this motorcycle has got a rev limit of 12,000 RPM. That is its maximum operating load. So, by all means, go ahead and use all the way up to 12,000 RPM. You don't need to use any more than that. I mean, well, if you, unless you want to redline it. But don't be afraid to use the motorcycle all the way up to its maximum RPM. It's fine. It's designed to operate within that range. And you could argue that performance engines, like in this ZX-9R here, they have to be revved. They have to be quite aggressively used to keep the engines in tip-top shape. All right, there's that classic scene from Le Mans '66. If you haven't seen that movie, that's a great movie. I think in America it's called Ford versus Ferrari, but it's a great movie of Christian Bale and Matt Damon. And there's a scene right at the beginning where he says a guy brings in this performance car. I can't remember what it was. It's a Jaggy type or something like that. But he says, "Oh yeah, there's something wrong with it." And basically, Christian Bale's character says to him, "Well, it's because you're not driving it hard enough, and so you're clogging up the injectors or something like that." I can't remember exactly what his statement was, but it is true how some engines are designed to have a high load put on them. If they don't get a high enough load, then that can cause some long-term damage to the engine, or at least some temporary damage to the engine. And you might clog things up. You might, I don't know, you might wear things out without realizing. It's the same with a lot of cars. Or with any engine for that matter, if you don't use the entire range every once in a while, then the engine will kind of set into the range that you drive it. And then in the end, it makes the lifespan of the engine worse, simply because if, I don't know, for example, you accidentally over-rev the engine one day, it can't cope with it. So under-revving an engine can be just as damaging as over-revving an engine. Again, that's a little misconception that people don't understand. And when it comes to redlines, remember that it is a safety mechanism on the bike. So it's designed to do that. It's designed to stop you from over-revving the motorcycle. So it's built in, it's a built-in fail-safe to stop the engine from nuking itself, okay? But that doesn't mean to say that you should be bouncing it off the limiter every single time whenever you ride your bike. Okay, that's a little bit fast. I was gonna go all the way to redline just there, but let's, okay, we're in first gear. Oh, I'll tell you what, let's just... Alright. Oh no! I over-revved the engine. I redlined it. Oh dear! I'm such a bad motorcyclist. No, it's fine. You can redline a bike every once in a while. It's not going to be a big deal. All right, don't worry about it. It will be fine. If you're bouncing it off the limiter and you're pinning it on the limiter every single time you go out and ride, every 5 minutes or so, well, yeah, that is going to cause damage to the engine. And you're risking what's known as valve float, where the valve hasn't had an opportunity to close, and so it smashes up against the piston. If your valves are hitting the pistons, the engine basically has gone out of time. And that's the problem, is that these engines are timed perfectly up to 12,000 RPM, up to their rev limit. Once you get past that, then you're running the risk of putting the engine out of time. And it might only take once to over rev the engine or to redline it for it to jump out of time, out of sync. And that's when you're going to get things like rod knock, or that's when you're going to get things like pistons hitting valves, because the engine is totally out of time. Those are the risks that you're taking by trying to push the engine past its normal operation. Hey, nice bike. That's a Hayabusa. Woo! I think so. I think it was a Hayabusa. Lovely, lovely bike. But it's not going to be catastrophic to the bike. All right. If you do it once in a while, it's going to be absolutely fine. Here we go. Right. That was 30,000 RPM. Bounced off the limiter. It's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. Just rev it out for the boys. Oh, this road isn't quite straight enough for me to rev it out in first gear. And you know, you're going to be doing like 70, 80 mile an hour in first gear on this bike, revving it out. It's a fast bike, this. ZX-9 is a very fast motorcycle. Now, you could make the argument that revving out motorcycle engines is actually considerably safer than revving out a car engine that is producing a load more torque, a load more force on the pistons, on the crankshaft, everything else like that. This bike isn't producing a lot of torque, about 100 Newton meters, which is what, 70, 80 foot-pounds, something like that, maybe 80 to 85 foot-pounds of torque. It's not a lot of torque, really. There are motorcycles that produce way more torque than this, but you could make the argument that over revving an engine like this that is smaller, that is already designed to go at higher RPMs, well, it will be all right going an extra 500 RPM or so, 700, 800 RPM or so. It will be absolutely fine. And yeah, to be fair, you could absolutely make that argument, and at the end of the day, it all comes down to personal preference and how you like to look after your bikes, your engines, right? For me, it's pretty basic that the more you load an engine, the more it's going to wear out. Simple as that. Every single time whenever you redline an engine, you could be lowering its lifespan, all right? And that is especially true if you have old oil. So make sure that you have fresh oil in your bikes, or decent oil, decent enough oil that if you do end up pinning redline, well, the oil is going to be there to make sure it limits the amount of friction and wear that is on the engine. All right, you need decent quality oil in there to stop it, again, to some extent from nuking itself, but yeah, to mitigate that long-term wear and tear that engines naturally have throughout their lifespan. Now, as I've been out today, I have been practicing some wheelies. I've been trying to do second gear clutch ups. And yeah, I am starting to pick up that front wheel, but second gear clutch ups for me are significantly harder to pull off than first gear clutch ups, although you have a lot more control over the wheel coming up off the ground in second gears. But what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to turn around because I don't want to be waiting in this traffic, and the thing is, if there's traffic up in that direction, then it's probably going to be even worse when I get past it. So yeah, let's turn around here. It's probably some road work, so I'm not really concerned. I don't have a specific direction in mind that I'm going to be going today. But redlining an engine is fine for the most part. All right, here we go. Right, it's fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it. If you redline it every once in a while, the bike will be absolutely fine. But if you keep on doing it and you abuse it, then that's when bad things are going to happen, especially with older bikes. All right, older motorcycles. It's good to rev them out every once in a while, because again, they still need that same treatment. They still have to be treated, especially like sport bikes, they have to be treated like sport bikes, right? You do have to rev them out every once in a while to keep the engines in tip-top shape. And there's also this whole idea surrounding the Italian tune-up. Now, if you haven't heard about that, well, basically it's where you rev out the engine a few times, you really bring those pistons, the surface temperatures inside the engine up really high, incredibly high. Not to the point where the engine will destroy itself, but to the point where carbon deposits that sit on the valves, that sit on the piston, are able to clear themselves up. Now, I don't know this, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a scientist, but on Engineering Explained, they do have a fantastic video detailing some of the studies that have been done around clearing carbon deposits using the Italian tune-up method. And to some extent it does work, because carbon deposits, there's a surface temperature on the pistons, on the valves and things. If you can get them hot enough, the carbon will dissolve, it will vaporize, and it will just fly out the exhaust. And that does increase the power output and the lifespan of an engine. There are carbon cleaners that you can get as well for an engine. I think you just put them in your fuel tank, and that might help as well dissolve some of those carbon deposits in the fuel, but I don't know if that does any other damage. But Scotty Kilmer likes to use them every once in a while on his videos, carbon cleaners and things. He seems to really believe in them. I don't know. But if you want to avoid those kinds of issues, then don't be afraid to over-rev. Oh, well, I say over-rev. Don't be afraid to use the entire rev limit of your bike, and then you don't have to worry about it. If you're constantly under 6,000 RPM all the time, that is going to cause damage to the engine over the long term. All right? So don't do it. Don't be afraid. Every single time you're out on a ride, really give it the beans in first gear, really rev it out, and you'll be absolutely fine. Or we don't have to go into redline, but rev it up to redline. That's absolutely fine. And that's good for the engine, that is good for the bike. Especially if it is a sport bike or it is a performance-oriented motorcycle. They need that kind of treatment every once in a while, like I said, to keep them in tip-top shape. So don't be afraid to do it. Man, this bike has got so much power, it's great. Yeah, this is a fantastic motorcycle, man. The ZX-9R is absolutely great. Well, I mean, there you have it, everyone. Shall we rev it out one last time for the video? Here we go. Woo! And let that clutch out really slowly, just to put a little bit of extra pressure on it. Yeah, great times, guys, and don't be afraid to redline your engine every once in a while. It'll be fine. If you have a nice sounding exhaust on it, well, that's how you're gonna get the best sound, is with those higher RPMs. So don't be afraid to use it. Don't be afraid to use that entire rev range and really experience the bike to its fullest. Seriously, there's a lot of fun to be had if you just pushed it a little bit further. But there you have it, everyone. Thank you ever so much for joining me on today's ride. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've learned something today. If you've learned something today, if you have learned something today, then please make sure to leave that like, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss any of this amazing content going forward on the awesome Kawasaki ZX-9R and all the other motorcycles that we feature on this channel. And let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Am I wrong here? Do you redline your motorcycles, or are you like me where you don't really like to redline your bikes all that often, if ever, to try and give them the best lifespan possible? Let me know down in the comment section below as always. But thanks again, take care, ride safe, and we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.